There are many JoJo parts that are diverse and well loved for its engaging stories, memorable characters, entertaining fights, and most importantly, the bizarreness. All of this bundled into 9 separate sections, and one part that the majority would say outweighs the others is Part 7, Steel Ball Run. Not only is Steel Ball Run one of the greatest JoJo parts, but also one of the greatest manga series ever made, being just below Berserk, and it's not hard to see why from how creative it is. Steel Ball Run is one of the most entertaining mangas I've read in a long time, from start to finish with 95 chapters, spanning in a total of 24 volumes. It never got boring, and kept my interest throughout all of it, from how the plot develops. If I really want to delve into certain aspects to show why Steel Ball Run is loved by many, then there are some things I'd have to spoil. So I insist you to read the entirety of Steel Ball Run before watching this, because it really is one of the greatest mangas that I think everyone should at least try. So please go read it now before I ruin the whole experience. First off, the most distinctive aspect of Part 7 is the complete different direction it goes in from the other parts. Sure, every part of JoJo's is different in some way, but Steel Ball Run changes everything, since the story is told in an alternate universe based in the 1890s of America. Up until now, even though the parts of JoJo's had separate stories, it still followed a continuous timeline, but with Steel Ball Run, it practically resets the basis on what JoJo's was, to make a new fresh spin on the series. But it's not like the creator wanted to erase what made JoJo special, because there are still callbacks to the other parts, such as characters having similar appearances and names fans will know, like Ermid Avdol or FB Stroheim, and a bunch more surnames that are recognizable, for instance Higashikata, Zeppeli, and the most obvious one, Joestar. Many of these callbacks aren't even super important to the plot, they're just nice details to give the story more personality. Talking about the story, it captivates you from the get-go, with a simple yet fascinating intro. To put it simply, the Steel Ball Run is a huge 3,000 participant cross-country race to New York, to win a cash prize of $50 million, with the characters competing traveling to 9 various locations of America to reach the goal. This is pretty much the basic rundown of the story, and from every other JoJo part, this is the one that drew me in the most. It's a storyline that has so much potential, that easily keeps your attention on how intriguing it sounds, where it takes you on a journey with the racing, and seeing many of the racers adds a little bit more charm. You've got Avdol riding a camel, or Sandman who just said, "Screw this, I'm running this whole thing." But the racing as is so enjoyable. It's not just a simple start to end goal, it's slightly more than that, because as I said before, there is a whole 9 phases the racers need to conquer on the way to New York. And the contestants must win these phases to get more points, and whichever racer gets the most points in the overall race wins. It's a really solid formula that keeps it interesting and consistent throughout, and it can be really intense sometimes, and the first stage encapsulates this perfectly. To start with, it introduces a few of the main contestants you'll get familiar with while reading, like Diego Brando or Poco Loco, and what some of them intend to do if they win. In particular, Sandman wants to buy a plot of land so he can ensure his village has a safe place to stay. By knowing that these characters have their own reasons for wanting the $50 million adds a lot more depth, so it makes the competition suspenseful. Especially near the end of the phase, where a bunch of the contestants you came to know are all neck and neck with each other. You don't know who's going to win, since it's only the first phase, so it's anyone's game. And how the characters have their personal reasons to win gives the race a lot more meaning than just winning a bunch of money, so moments where the characters are fighting for first place are so thrilling. The first phase sets a good example on how the race works and how it's going to feel from now on. Honestly, if the story was only about racing, I'd be completely happy with it, but it goes deeper by it not just being about a contest, it adds more to it. Where there are now 9 corpse parts of a saint that can gift incredible powers scattered across the phases of the race, and the President of the United States will stop at nothing to get all of them, to be the first one to pick up the napkin. And whose corpse is it exactly? Well, it's none other than Jesus Christ himself. I know this sounds like the dumbest thing, but come on, it's JoJo's, it's in the title. Even though this is so goofy, it's so engaging because of its bizarreness. The uniqueness is what makes it so special, and I've not even delved into the protagonists yet. The Jojo of this part is Johnny Joestar, a well-known American horse jockey who was beloved by his fans until the day he got shot by pushing ahead in a queue that then paralysed his body waist down, feeling pathetic about himself, as he is now no longer the beloved jockey he once was. Knowing this, he strives to gather the corpse parts to make something of himself, as he finds out the corpses hold a strong energy within that gifted Johnny the power to be able to shoot his finger and toenails like a bullet, which is his new stand ability. Then there's Gyro Zeppeli, an Italian from Naples and an executioner passed down by him as tradition of the Zeppeli family lineage, using his steel balls as a tool for successful executions. His goal is to win the steel ball run race to save a young boy's life who's on death row by getting accused of being involved in an assassination attempt to kill the king, and if Gyro wins this race, the boy will be granted an amnesty. Both Gyro and Johnny work well as characters, but they work even better together. In the beginning, Gyro seems to be quite a mystery, where he does unordinary things with his steel balls, like when Johnny touched one of them while it was spinning, and suddenly made his legs move for a brief second. And you learn more about Gyro as it goes on. Since Johnny wants to learn more about Gyro's strange abilities to understand what the steel balls have to do with his legs moving. So throughout, the more Johnny knows about Gyro, it's like you're learning with him, which is good character development for both of them. Gyro then becomes somewhat of a mentor for Johnny, giving him lessons about his spin abilities, even in the most serious situations, where they could be seconds from dying, and Gyro would just teach Johnny about rectangles. But it shows Johnny's growth within these lessons, and it strengthens his character quite a lot. Johnny Joestar is one of my favourite JoJos because of how he grows. He starts out feeling terrible about himself, unable to even get on a horse, to then obtaining a stand of his own that evolves the more he learns about his powers. His stand first looks like a weak little thing that I don't even know how to describe, and then turns into an absolute huge powerhouse that looks completely different. But compared to most of the other JoJo stands up to this point, their stands don't go beyond from what they start out from. Like Josuke's stand pretty much stays the exact same from start to finish, not adding anything new to the mix. Same with Jolene's. But Jotaro and Giorno do change slightly, but it's at the very end of their part. It isn't really a bad thing, but the way Johnny's stand works is overall more interesting. It reminds me of Koichi's stand, going through several separate acts. Yet, unlike Koichi, Johnny is the main character and his goals and aspirations have a lot more meaning. So it's immersing and entertaining to see how Johnny conquers his struggles to get stronger from what he learns, which is why Johnny stands out from the rest of the JoJos. Gyro is also interesting in several ways, because him being an executioner is something that would have never crossed my mind. Before, the Zeppeli family was known for their Hamon techniques, but now in this new world they're all a bunch of executioners. It brings a side to Gyro you never expected. Gyro and Johnny are incredible. What I also enjoy about them is that through most of the part, it's only them two that stick together. It hardly ever goes beyond that. There are a handful of characters that may be with them for a few chapters, but they would then leave to go do their own objectives. So it mostly focuses on the two, which is great because with less characters means it's easier to get attached to them and has room to develop them to a greater extent. Not like the other parts except from 1 and 2, where there is a much larger main cast consisting up to 6 to 7 characters. And it is always good to have a varied cast having various personalities between them. They can sacrifice potential from the characters, making some of them feel underdeveloped, as there are many different ones to go through, so it's harder to make a ton of progress. It is much easier with Johnny and Gyro, and I love it. You feel their bond deepen the more they're with each other. It started with Johnny just wanting to understand Gyro's secret to his technique, to hopefully find a way to help himself, wanting to prove to Gyro his commitment, to show how serious he is. Gyro notices this and is willing to give tips to Johnny on how his spinning ability works, and from there on they become best buds, taking on this race together, fighting in countless battles to survive this grueling task. Going through many emotions along their travels, growing closer to one another, shows that this is not going to be an easy task. It really is satisfying to see how far they come, the more struggles they get through. And as before, the numerous fights they both and other characters go through are some of the absolute best in the whole series. In part 7 there are a great deal of noteworthy and memorable fights that elevate Steel Ball Run to be one of the most outstanding parts. Chapters like The True Man's World, Scary Monsters, A Silent Way, Break My Heart, Break Your Heart have tremendous battles. There are an abundance of excellent chapters that even top the most renowned and beloved moments of any other previous part. And what I also enjoy about the fights is that most of them actually progress the plot, even if it's just small. For example, many of the fights in Part 3, Stardust Crusaders, could have just been cut out and it would have made no difference to the story itself, and there were countless of them, which made the plot's length a lot longer, making it slightly tedious to rewatch. But Steel Ball Run really has this problem. Maybe there are like 1 or 2 enemies that don't serve too much of a purpose, but it's still very creative and exhilarating, and all the other chapters that don't focus on the action side of things are just as pleasant. For instance, some of my most loved chapters, The Promised Land Sugar Mountain and the first little bit of Tubular Bells. This small chunk of the storyline is some of the most unique and innovative JoJo sections I've read, all within these 3 and a bit chapters. It begins with Gyro dropping one of his steel balls into a spring, suddenly making it disappear, and then it reappears in the hand of a small girl. Both Johnny and Gyro chase after her for a bit, and they end up seeing this huge tree that the little girl happens to live in. When inside, the girl offers Gyro a diamond and a piece of gold, asking if these were what he dropped into the spring. Gyro then retaliates, saying he wants his damn steel ball back, and he is then awarded the diamond, gold, and his steel ball, as it was a test for how honest he was. And they both soon realise whatever item they drop in the spring next to the tree will be given an object that is a lot more valued. Sounds like a great deal, right? Well, not really, because if they aren't honest, the girl stand will go down their throats and pull their innards out. So being truthful is the best solution. Gyro and Johnny then continue to gain more valuable items, such as an expensive branded watch to replace the broken one on Johnny's wrist, a nice amount of dollar notes from a piece of newspaper, and even some corpse parts they got from using a dead rabbit's limbs. It seems like things are going well for both of them, but they actually made a huge mistake, and it's something the girl should have told them before they committed getting these objects. You see, they now need to use up all the items they have before sunset, or else they will become the fruit of the tree, being in line with the others that failed to do the same task in time. If Johnny or Gyro become a fruit, they will be stuck in the tree. They will not die or age, but be trapped there, and once a person turns into a fruit, another person can leave, and the one that leaves becomes the new guardian of the tree, and the one before gets to be free. Johnny and Gyro can't run from it, or they can't throw the items away. The only way to get rid of them is doing a fair trade, if not they will slowly turn into a fruit. Then in a hurry, Gyro and Johnny rush to get rid of all the stuff they obtained, thinking of various ways to achieve this. They try to spend most of the money eating a ton of food at a fancy restaurant, buying nice horseshoes for their steeds, and using their gold, diamond and the rest of the money on a building. Which turned out not to be the best idea, because they ended up coming out with more money than they started with. Which is bad enough, but this whole time they have been a group of stand users on the look for them, that were recruited by Valentine the President, to take the corpses that Gyro or Johnny may have. They then tried to gamble all the money away, which sounds promising, but it came out to be their worst idea yet, and it's just a train wreck from there, as the group of stand users find them at the casino to kill Johnny and Gyro. It's already bad as it is, because it's now almost sunset, so they barely have any time left. They end up in a shootout, and it looks like there's no hope for them, but Gyro had a plan to get out of this situation. He quickly hired people in the casino with everything they had to get rid of to be his personal bodyguards, and they helped to kill the stand users that were pursuing them. From there, they succeeded in using up the items they had, except it isn't, because in a big twist of events, all the items haven't been used. They forgot about the corpse parts, and it's just about to hit sundown, which then affects Gyro before Johnny, where now he starts becoming the fruit of the tree. Johnny is then shocked, not knowing what to do, gripping onto the corpse parts in desperation, and slowly but surely, Gyro becomes a part of the tree. This will also become Johnny if nothing gets done about it. But in another twist of events, one of the stand users that were after them survived, and just in time Johnny traded him the corpse parts for an opened bottle of wine, which rescued Gyro and broke the curse upon the tree, saving the rest of the people trapped there. It then finishes with the two sitting in the snow, making a toast for the goal and the next corpse part. I absolutely love this entire section. The concept is absorbing. With the curse of the tree, it's so interesting. It honestly could just be a short story alone, from how much thought went into how the curse works. There is so much going for it. It has as much entertainment value as some of the greatest fights in the series. And sure, this little part of the story does have a fight in it that is really a high stake to both the protagonists' lives, but is not the main focus. Because seeing how Johnny and Gyro make every effort to use the items in time is captivating. Every time they attempt to trade or sell their items, it doesn't often go to plan, so you don't even know what they'll do to escape this. The most obvious solutions seem to go horribly, so it's extremely intense not knowing how the situation is going to end. There are also powerful emotions to this, especially with Johnny, as he is crying over not wanting to give the corpse parts away, as you know how much these mean to him, so it's upsetting to see his hope disappear. And these aren't the only chapters that show emotions like this, there are tons of others that are as effective. Johnny cries a lot in the manga. I can't blame the poor man. And what is just as easy to get lost in is the art. There are hundreds of panels which are insanely impressive. Araki's artwork is so inspiring, it speaks for itself looking at them. The art makes it that much more enjoyable and pleasant to read. I anticipate if the anime ever does come out, that it replicates the art just as well. And speaking of the discussion on if the Steel Ball Run anime will ever be a thing, some JoJo fans need to chill. I understand that Steel Ball Run is amazing in every way, but some fans are getting impatient, wanting the anime as soon as possible. Like Stone Ocean only just ended at the end of last year, it's not been that long. As incredible as Part 7 is, I can still wait a good 5 years before the anime, because you can't rush perfection, or it could get the Berserk treatment, though I doubt it'd be that bad if it were rushed. But the point is, I personally don't care when the anime gets released. I could even wait 10 damn years for however long it takes. I would want it to be done right, because Steel Ball Run is an absolute masterpiece of a manga, and the anime should just be the same.